that you've earned. He's earned this crowd. He's earned this support. That's what I think. I don't have a vote in this district, but he's earned my support and my respect. I want everyone to know I wouldn't be anywhere tonight. There's not another place I'd be tonight than to support Councilor Danny Callison for 4 more years. We need him, I need him, the nation needs him. That's the truth. 4 years ago, I didn't know him, but I knew of him. And what I knew of him was important to me then, and it is now. But of course, I've gotten to work with him and know him well. But at the time, what I knew of him came from my father, who many of you know, Chuck Hokins. And what my father said, having worked with the man in public education, was that no one worked harder than Danny Callison, Coach Callison. That's what he said. And he also said that what impressed him most about Coach Callison wasn't that he was a winner of a coach, and he was. You could look at his record. It wasn't how he conducted himself when he won, and he had a lot of times to celebrate with the teams when he won. It was what he did for kids when they lost, or things were going tough. Maybe it wasn't even an athletic competition. Maybe it was something going on in their lives, because he's a public educator. Those two things mean something to me. It means that he was running for an office that I know that if you work hard, you can make a difference in the lives of the people that you represent. The Council of the Cherokee Nation, like nowhere else, in no other government, can you make a difference. I know it. I've seen it. It also told me that he's the kind of person who wants to take care of people who need lifted up when they need lifted up, and there might not be anyone else around to do it. When people are counting on him, he'll be there for them, and he'll work hard. Those two things, if you've got those two things as a public servant, I know you can do a great deal of good in this Cherokee Nation government. So on that basis, I watched him work. Now, he and I have served during some interesting, challenging times, very tough times for all of us, what we've seen in the last 5 years that I've been in office, and just the last few years that he's been in office. My goodness, time has flown, Counselor. But in that time, he's been tested, and he passes the test like he always does. I have seen it. He is the type of councilman who, if we're talking about a great big issue that might mean tribal sovereignty is at stake. Maybe it's in Washington, D.C., and that's been tested many times. Maybe it's in Oklahoma City, where we've had some fights, and you've seen them, and you've been there for us, and I've been there too. Those great big issues, where they animate him. I've seen him get fired up. We've all heard the halftime speeches that he's given in council meetings and community meetings. And when we need to hear that we're doing right, and that defense of the Cherokee Nation is righteous, and asserting sovereignty is righteous, and staring down the folks who would be the enemies of our tribal sovereignty that has been hard fought by us and our ancestors. He's been there when we needed him to keep us charging into those fights when we sometimes have to, and to defend sovereignty when we need to. But that same passion, I'm serious about this, is there if it's an elder who needs a roof and has been waiting too long, or needs something done with health care and has just been as good as we try to be. Sometimes we miss something. Or a kid who needs a chance when he's got a special place in his heart for young people, needs a chance at an education to make sure they get that scholarship. He brings that same passion. I have seen this time and time again. And that is inspirational to me as chief, and it's inspirational to his colleagues who serve on the council and who serve elsewhere in the leadership of the Cherokee Nation. I mean, there's a reason that the treasurer said we almost have a quorum tonight, is because his colleagues have shown up for him. They respect him. They want him to be around for another 4 years because they need him, because they know that he's someone who will bring passion and energy to the service of Cherokee people, no matter it's the biggest issue in the world we've got with sovereignty, or somebody that just needs help. He'll do it, and they know it, and that's why they're here. That's why I'm here. The list of accomplishments and the measure of progress is great with this man. And I've been proud to work with him on a lot of it. And I could go up and down the list and probably leave some out. But some of the things that he's done, some of the leadership that he's demonstrated, some of the projects we work on in this community and across his district have been the types of projects and efforts that are making a difference in the lives of people who live in these communities and are going to make a difference in their lives for years to come. And it makes me proud to get behind what he wants to do. Take housing, for example. When the deputy chief and I took office, we had our work cut out for us on housing, and we still do. We've been honest about it. We've said we've done a housing study, and there's a great deal of need. But what did Danny Callison do? He said, in the community of Locust Grove, let's put in some affordable housing so people can stay there and live there. He said, let's do it, and we got it done. And we're not done on housing yet in this district. Because what we did in Locust Grove has opened up opportunities. And I remember, Counselor, when we provided the keys to some of those families, it reminded us of what we need reminded from time to time, that in the Cherokee Nation, there are too many people still struggling. There are people who are paying rent, and I don't know how they're getting by. Man, I know what does happen to them sometimes, which is they get to the end of the month, and they don't know if they can make it, and too many of them don't make it. And we're proud of the work we've done on housing, but Coach Callison reminds us that when it comes to housing for this district, for this nation, we ought to lead, and we're just warming up. And we've got to have his leadership 4 more years. We want to get more done. So on housing alone, Danny Callison has earned re-election. Healthcare is an area that he approached me, I think, Counselor, before you even took the oath of office. And I'll never forget it. The Salina Clinic, the oldest clinic in our system, was something we needed to address. We had been investing for more than a decade in new healthcare facilities, and it was making a difference just 5 years ago. It meant healthcare could be delivered more efficiently. It meant we could hire more people, which goodness knows we got to hire more people to keep up with the demand for quality and access for the Cherokee people. We've got to keep doing it. Can't do it if we stay in the same facilities we had for 20, 30 years that in many cases the federal government built for us. But Salina was really the last piece. He didn't just tell me, and the Speaker of the Council was there, they didn't just tell me, Chief, we should replace the Salina Clinic. He took me in there, and he walked me through those halls, and you all may use the clinic. And those halls are narrow, and those rooms are too small, and they're winding, and that building's been added onto. He did it on purpose. He knew that just telling me we've got to improve healthcare conditions and access out of that clinic might not get it done as good as showing me. And that's what he'll do. He'll take you to his communities. He'll take you to the doorsteps of elders who need help, because we've been there. He'll take you to a facility that's seen better days, like the Salina Clinic. He sponsored legislation after he did all that work and discussion with me and the deputy chief. He sponsored legislation, which is the reason that we're in the midst of tripling the size of the Salina Clinic, an $85 million investment. Councilman, we're going to be opening the doors soon on that. We're going to open the doors soon. We're ahead of schedule on that. That's all. He must have went in and gave a speech because we're ahead of schedule. That's unheard of. That healthcare facility is going to be more than just a building. It's going to, as I say, increase capacity, which means you get into the doctor sooner rather than later. And we got to level with each other. Sometimes there are still waits, sometimes there's still struggles, and sometimes there's frustration. But we can't get where we need to go on healthcare if we stand still. If we stand still on healthcare, we know this much is true. We'll fall behind, and we can't wait for the federal government to come to the rescue. I know they won't come to the rescue fully. We'll keep pushing them. We've got to get behind ideas and leaders like Danny Callison, who says we ought to lead. We're not meant to fall behind, and we ought to put our resources into it. So that's part of what that symbolizes. There's also going to be something important in that healthcare center that the councilman says ought to be in every healthcare center, and he's right. Not just a place to get your pharmaceuticals. You need them. Not just a place to go in and be told, like I'm told by my doctor, Cheif, you've got high blood pressure. And then you say, it's the governor's fault. Don't blame me. I didn't do it. And then they say, hold on, you're not taking care of yourself, right? We could all do better. Some of us could do better if we have a place to get better nutrition and exercise. That's why when he said, we got to replace this clinic, he also said, we got to have a wellness center in the Salina Health Center. And there's going to be a wellness center in there, a place for you to go exercise at no cost. Time and time again, no matter what the issue is, he always tries to find a way. I remember there's a few communities whose water systems, something we take for granted till they don't work, were undersized. And when they're undersized, what we talked about is some of the communities in our reservation won't hope to grow, whether it's housing, whether it's economic development, whether it's even a healthcare facility we want to put in someday. If the water system is old and failing, then we're not going to make the kind of progress that we need to make. And so that's why he's worked with these communities to steer as many dollars into improving drinking water and water capacity, things that we take for granted until we need them. He works tirelessly on that sort of thing, and I work with him. Parks are near and dear to his heart. I know Pipe Springs Park, not too far from here, is something he's worked on. Playground equipment, all sorts of things to make sure that in this district, just as it should be across this reservation, that the quality of life here ought to improve and improve and improve. And there's lots of ways we can do it. I've mentioned it. His ideas on housing, what he's done on health care, what we're doing on infrastructure. It's going to make a difference. It has to make a difference. Because if this nation is going to be all that it can be in this century, if this community and all the communities that he represents and that I represent are going to be better tomorrow than they were yesterday, if we're going to say we're a nation that keeps getting stronger, that keeps investing in the right things, that keeps investing in young people, that keeps investing in housing and health care and jobs and education. My goodness, this man's a champion for education. If we're going to do that, we've got to have his leadership. But it won't happen by accident. 4 years ago, we had the good fortune, I think, in this nation to have Danny Callison on the ballot. Many of you knew him. Some of you didn't. And you gave him a chance. I hope you don't regret it, because I think it was one of the best decisions this nation's ever made. You sent a person to Tahlequah who cares about people. You sent a person to Tahlequah who will cheer us on when we need to be cheered on. You sent somebody to Tahlequah that takes people sometimes in their darkest moment, puts his arm around them and says, it'll be okay, we'll get through this together. You sent a man to Tahlequah who is convinced that the best days of the Cherokee Nation are ahead of us if we work together. So I've got to ask you this. I've got to ask you to support Danny Callison. I've got to ask you to make sure you're registered and go vote for Danny Callison. If you like the progress in this district on all these issues and a great many more, we got to have 4 more years of Danny Callison. If you think this nation and its leaders ought to be as good as the people that it represents, then you've got to support Danny Callison. If you want to send a man back to Tahlequah who'll cheer us on, who'll keep us moving in the right direction, who'll keep making Cherokee Nation the great Indian nation it can be, folks, please vote for Danny Callison. He's got my support. You got my support, Danny Callison. Thank you all very much.